I'm Dawn Kennedy, your host of the Profit Accelerator Podcast. I'm an attorney, author, mentor, and CEO of a growing coffee company. Thanks for joining me on the show that looks at all aspects of business, from the mindset to the sales to the money left over at the end of the month, with tips and strategies to help you navigate this amazing ride called entrepreneurship. Thanks for making us part of your journey. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Profit Accelerator Podcast. So it's been a while since we talked specifically about some mindset things around entrepreneurship and particularly around yourself and how you view yourself, and maybe some things that you don't realize could be affecting your mindset and causing more problems maybe than you should have to deal with. So I brought Ryane on to go ahead and give us the download and the skinny on mindset, especially when it comes to things like coping. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Dawn. I'm so excited to be here and with the Profit Accelerator Podcast. This is awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Can you tell everyone who you are and who you serve?
Yes, absolutely. So I am Ryane LeCesne, and I am on a mission to really serve people with the message of everybody needs a coach. So universally, I serve that message. That is literally like my calling, is to get people tuned into the power of coaching to shift our mindset. Who do I specifically, work with generally? Well, I am a woman, so I tend to attract women. I also am a high achiever, so I tend to attract high achieving women. And I'm a Black woman, so I tend to attract Black women who are high achievers, who are either looking to move up in their career or organizations, or are looking to scale a business. And so I've got career-focused individuals and I've got entrepreneurs who I service. The main thing that I help people do is to come in touch with, when I say that, I mean become more aware of what causes fear within them, and to teach people, guide people to implement proven, scientifically based tools and steps and philosophies to help them in real time, in real situations that we'll get into today, to overcome and combat fear. Fear looking like procrastination, overwhelm, burnout, all the things, and how to continue to create a life that somebody really loves without the shadow of self-doubt, overwhelm, and anxiety, boxing them out of their dreams, or overshadowing, or casting a ugly hue. So that is what I help people do, and that's who I serve, and I really, really love it.
Amazing. So when we were first talking about designing an episode here, you had talked about, again, with the fear, there's this kind of big three that seems to overshadow, again, high achievers, entrepreneurs and stuff. And that was imposter syndrome, perfectionism, and distraction. Why are those the big three?
Yeah. So, why is a super interesting question. Why? I would say, particularly for high achievers, one, I think that it is a universal experience. These are not experiences that are Black, white, male, female, age specific. These are mindsets that happen to human beings. So let's kind of break them down and talk about why this is. So first of all, just in terms of how we are designed as human beings, our main job as a human, not as a personality, not as a title, but your job as a human being is to stay alive and to procreate. Those are our basic two functions. Okay. So in staying alive, the way that we are wired is we generally have, 80% of our thoughts are fear-based. Now, why is that? Well, to keep you alive. There might be a great idea. Let me, back in maybe perhaps more indigenous times, someone might think to themselves, let me go out and voyage and see what is beyond my village, beyond here. And the idea was, no, you have to tell yourself, no, I have to stay here. I have to stay where I am because this is my community. This is where I'm protected. Outside of these realms, there is danger. There's literally life-threatening experiences that can happen. People have told me about these things. I've seen these things. And so we learn and we adapt, and we're instinctively understanding that there's fear outside of this community, outside of this safe space, whatever that safe, quote unquote, safe, comfortable space is. Now, taking that to same exact experience, taking that to someone in a boardroom who is thinking to themselves, oh, I'm going to raise my hand and have my opinion heard, or I'm going to lean into my my idea that this is the right answer, this is the right solution. Or it might be, you know what, I'm ready to quit this job and move up in my business and really take that on. Whatever the big idea is, there's going to be 8 reasons, 8 probably very sound, rational reasons that are fear-based as to why we shouldn't do that thing. What will they say? What if you fail? What if people find out you're not so smart as you think you are? Don't you have to be perfect in order for people to take you seriously? Overwhelmed with distraction, a sensitive nervous system that's registering all kinds of energy that's just out there, just maybe feeling like you get close to people, maybe in a situation like in terms of overwhelm and nervous system, you might notice that you feel super anxious going into a call, regardless of who the call is about. So there's that sense of like overwhelmed. Well, these are natural experiences that human beings have when we are in the face of fear. Well, scientists over the years, social scientists, have categorized these ways of being. And so they've categorized one mindset, way of being, tendency called imposter syndrome. That idea essentially is a pervasive belief that they're going to find out I'm not supposed to be here. Someone's going to find out that I'm a fraud, that my file somehow got into the acceptance bin, that nobody knows I have to work twice as hard to do what everybody thinks I'm amazed at doing. It doesn't matter that my title is doctor, lawyer, teacher, professor, whatever. I have the experience and the expertise. I feel like I am going to be found out. So that train of thinking categorically is called imposter syndrome. Perfectionism is a twin to imposter syndrome, and that categorically is a pervasive belief, often a misnomer. This is a misnomer, that perfectionism means that you need things to be perfect. No, that's actually not perfectionism. And so a lot of people who are perfectionists be like, I'm not a perfectionist because nothing I do is perfect, right? Like I don't produce perfect things, but that's like really the true definition of perfectionism, is that a person believes that they have to be perfect in order to be taken seriously. And so this shows up like, I have to know everything. I cannot raise my hand and have my voice heard, because what if they know that I don't know? What if I can't answer the question perfectly? What if my email has typos in it? What if my business plan isn't perfect enough? So we get really caught in this perfectionism loop. Now, distractionism is a term that I coined. So if you Google imposter syndrome, Google perfectionism, you'll find a lot of data. If you Google distractionism, you won't. And it's because it's something that I have created or that I coined because of my own personal experience and because of the experience that I was hearing after years of being in the seat of coach with my clients. And essentially, distractionism are these very smart people who have accomplished a tremendous amount. And yet behind the mask, they feel scattered. They feel overwhelmed. They feel like their time management is just incredibly disjointed. They are terrified of rejection. They have very sensitive nervous systems. They might even consider themselves to be highly sensitive people. They're highly distractible, and they feel like while they might be able to go down one portal and learn a tremendous amount about the thing, it's very hard to come back and prioritize everything else. Okay, well, in my 40s, I came to a point in my own life where I was feeling all of those things, and really through a whole divine sort of breadcrumbs was like, oh my gosh, could this really truly be ADHD? And could ADHD as an adult be impacting who I am? So distractionism is more or less undiagnosed or untreated or unaware ADHD or neurodivergence. So those three are the three confidence killers that I see consistently over and over and over again, if not one, two, or three of those. Now, let me say too with distractionism. Distractionism isn't so much a mindset. It's kind of more of a convoluted experience because there is a nervous system experience happening. However, the nervous system being sensitive in and of itself is, I don't want to say a bit benign, but it's similar to having any other sort of physical experience that in a broad spectrum of things might be called a disability or called maybe outside of the box. Okay, that's fine. Got it. The real killer of confidence isn't a sensitive nervous system. Here's the point. It is the story we tell ourselves because of our internal experiences. For instance, a person with distractionism might really have this belief that they are a constant failure. They might have the belief that they're so stupid because they constantly forget things. I'm just so terrible at time management. I'm always late. I'm constantly procrastinating. So it's not necessarily that the nervous system is sensitive. It's the stories we tell ourselves based on the experiences we experience because of the nervous system. Because again, it's unaware, totally unaware. Oh, I'm sensitive, so this might be happening, or these are some of the outcomes of that. There's not a level of consciousness. There is, I have walked up and down my stairs 10 times, and I don't know why every time I get to the top of the stairs, I forget what I'm looking for. I must be stupid, right? That erodes the confidence. So again, those are the three confidence killers that I see every day in my practice. I support people to overcome.
So interesting about all of these particular things is, as you open up and explain, this is kind of like the human experience for most of us. So when we're looking at things that affect your imposter syndrome, perfectionism, distractionism and stuff, and it sounds like also some comparatinitis can really kind of get in there.
Oh, I love that. Oh my gosh. Say that again.
Yeah, the comparatinitis, right? So you open social media, your business isn't looking like theirs, or your marketing hasn't been as consistent, or your sales are down 1 month or something like that. So this kind of human experience that we put in and of ourselves, it sounds like really we're doing this to ourselves inside our mindset. You know, what are kind of some of the key things we need to look at, you know, to help us start to close that, what you called confidence gap, when all of this pervasive stuff is maybe in some ways kind of reinforcing these things about us?
Well, Dawn, first of all, I love this comparatinitis because that's something that literally is something to look out for. So I'm going to expand that as an example to really answer that question broadly by saying, and this is going to sound like what, but I'm going to unpack it with you.
Okay.
Is this idea of expanding your consciousness. Expanding your consciousness. Like, oh, what is that? You know, what I mean by that is what you just described, and I'm going to stick with this comparatinitis because I think that is fantastic. Okay, so comparatinitis. First of all, you said comparatinitis, and then you said a couple other things. You said comparatinitis, and you explained that and really went and unpacked it. And then you talked about comparatinitis begets comparatinitis. It's self-perpetuating, right? It is like an ever ongoing pattern because it's someone's habitual way of seeing the world. Their whole life is through comparison, not just some things, but the whole thing. It's a belief. Their whole, like they look at their to-do list and subconsciously, this is what I mean by raising your awareness, subconsciously. And then I'm going to get into why that's important. Subconsciously, this person picks up their to-do list, and as they're reading it, they are saying, they're comparing, where am I in comparison to someone else, or into comparison where I thought I should be, where my mother thinks I should be, where my partner thinks I should be, Where am I in compared to other mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters? Where am I in comparison? So they are not looking at this to-do list from a standpoint of like, oh, I have actually chosen to put the things on the to-do list. I'm excited to do these things. I'm motivated by these, even though they're the things that they probably want to technically do because of the way that they see the world. It's called a belief system because of the actually, I mean, it's like having the lens. If it's part of your whole experience, a part of everything that you perceive is based on your belief system. So if part of that unconscious belief system is I'm comparing myself to everything, that's going to be the experience. That's going to be suffering. So taking that as an example and again, raising the consciousness. So we are creatures of the subconscious. That's what we are. 5% of who and what we are is done by the conscious mind, meaning like I am intentionally, thinking this thing, saying this thing. I can tell you why. It's like at the conscious part of my brain. It's like actually what I'm thinking in the moment, even if it's about yesterday or tomorrow. But that's what I'm using with my 5% conscious mind. 95% of who and what you are and what I am lives in the subconscious mind. Now, that might not land on somebody, but I want someone to think about like, what if for 95% of the day, you put a blindfold on and were expected to live your life? Literally, like go, be successful. That's nearly impossible, right? And so that is the magnitude of our subconscious mind, meaning my beliefs live in the subconscious mind. So if I believe that comparison is the way to operate in the world, then maybe 5% of my conscious mind says, oh, I shouldn't compare. I should be better than that. But 95% of who and what I am is searching for comparison. It's not only is it searching for it, but it's looking for that evidence. See over there, look, you're not as good as them. See over there, oh, you're better than there. That's what happens. And so raising your awareness becomes me becoming more aware of what our beliefs are. What are your beliefs? Oh my God, my belief is comparison. Not I do that. That's my belief. I do that because it is my belief. I believe I have to compare. And until that belief is dealt with, that's going to be what it is. How to deal with the belief? Well, there's a whole lot of ways. My soapbox is coaching. Coaching is one of the most powerful ways to partner with someone who is a guide and an expert on changing beliefs. And so the question was, I think just in general, kind of like, why does all of this matter and how do we do this? And it's because of our beliefs, and our beliefs are 95% of who we are. And if the belief is I compare, not I have to, I compare. That's my belief. I believe in order to survive, it's a primal part of who I am. Until we are conscious of that, and until we do something about that, not read a book, which helps elevate the consciousness, but until we literally dismember that from ourselves, until we have almost, I will dare say the word exorcism of that belief, until we take that belief and it is purged out of us, that belief is going to be it's embodied in everything that we do. And so that's how it gets there. Comparinitis, how these things evolve. Mm-hmm.
So this is incredible. And this kind of like got another train of thought thinking, if our belief system is, this idea that we must compare and that we're operating with this subconscious, then asks the next question for everybody listening in. Where are your standards coming from if you're constantly like saying you should be doing this or should be doing that? Is it somebody other than you making these decisions to put your business forward? And if it's not you, is that playing into, again, this idea that you're not good enough or it's not going fast enough or whatever? And then, I'm sure that absolutely affects people's ability to cope with having to make decisions and, deal with the everyday in job, relationship, home life, and those things. So,
John, sorry. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, it's like, I'm wondering is like, if you're not aware that comparinitis maybe is your belief system, as you said, where are your standards coming from?
Yeah. And Donna, didn't mean to interrupt what I was going to say. It was Don. Yes, 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 yes. All of it. Literally all of it. All of it. I want people to hear you asked the question. It was almost like rhetorical, like, well, are you making the decisions or is somebody else? Yeah. No, no, no. Yeah. Consciously, like, I mean, I make the decisions of my business. I'm the CEO. It's really me and me. However, and if you were to look at me, not under a microscope as we know them, kind of let's like be a little bit imaginative. And we looked under a microscope at my mind, my nervous system, my thoughts, my feelings, my body sensations, the emotions I feel, the inner visions I see. We would, of course, see a completely different experience than how I present outwardly with my conscious mind that has been educated, refined, and socialized. Inside, we are chaos, crazy, right? Because where does the programming coming from? It's coming from other human beings who are just as crazy and just as unaware. And it comes from a loving me. Now, I'm raising a child. I love her dearly. She's 5 years old. And I, as an adult, as not even an adult, but as her parent, as the person like in her life, as her main person, I am doing my best to instill lessons within her, right? And I do a lot of you should, you must, and I'm trying. I do all the Instagram. I read all the positive parenting things, but I am programming this child who came into this world a blank slate, like all of us, and I am guiding her through this life. I am literally programming her. So is everybody else. Programming. This is what you should eat. This is what you should drink. This is what you should like. This is, who you are. This is life lessons. This is what this means. Her teachers, people I don't even know that she's exposed to, the TV, we are exposed creatures. We come into this world blank slate, loving ourselves. Babies love themselves. We are taught. And I don't say this with blame or guilt or shame. This is the human experience. This is not quite frankly the human experience, but I will dare say that this is the soul's spiritual journey, is to unravel this human context of I'm not enough, right? I've internalized the world as I'm not enough. Now we also, and not just blaming adults in our lives, but my daughter is interpreting the world, her entire existence, through a 5-year-old's lens. And this is the oldest she is, right? This is like the wisest that she's been. And so when mommy's face looks really upset and she's trying to internalize what is going on, and she's feeling like, oh my God, I'm not enough. I'm like having not a large, thank God in our family, T trauma, but a small T trauma, and like mommy's upset with me. I'm making meaning out of this. I'm concerned about this. I don't understand the context of this. She's literally making meaning. She's either agreeing in that moment, I'm enough or I'm not. I'm perfect or I'm not. So a whole life of this creates patterns of thinking, agreements with life. Somewhere along the line, taking comparisonitis as an example, let's say an 8-year-old realizes in school, it makes logical sense that I compare myself to other people and I find my value in either exceeding people or I find value in not, right? Value meaning like diminished value and not. And so it becomes a logical agreement that I'm going to self-preservation here. I'm going to operate within my world and I'm going to use comparison as a litmus test as to my survival. Where am I on the spectrum of this thing? And 98%, listen to this audience, 98% of our thoughts are the same as yesterday's thoughts until the paradigm shifts. So that means that 8-year-old, when she's 65, is still comparing herself to everybody else and everybody else to her because that's a habit of being. And now it's so ingrained. And now she's so jammed in her life that she's like, oh my God, I'm supposed to like send this email. And inside, I look totally coiffed, right? Like my hair's done and whatever. Somebody might walk past my office and think that I'm amazing and tell me that I am. They might shout it out. And inside, I'm petrified because I'm telling myself, you've got to compare. You got to compare. And the last email I got was just so well done or was so poor that I have to like be better or worse. whew, this person is jammed, Don.
Yeah, that sounds absolutely exhausting over time. And, to your point, for those of us, who are maybe struggling with these things and dealing with this, day in, day out, subconsciously, it's exhausting us. We're never feeling like we're getting ahead or having a lot of joy. This point back all the way to this has been going on your entire human existence is actually, I think, something of a comfort. It's like you didn't wake up, start a business or climb the corporate ladder and all of a sudden realize you weren't. I mean, there was just all of this training along the ways. And to your point, that needs to have awareness and be undone in order for you to reach that level of success that you want. Where can people find you, learn more about your coaching program, and more about this unpacking the big three?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. So my website is inspirebrandconsulting.com. And so all of the information's there. I offer a free quiz on that website that gives you a sense based on how someone's answered the questions, what one of those three mindsets might be the most pervasive based again on how it's not a diagnostic tool. It's just a simple sort of like People Magazine info kind of quiz to get some of that insight. And then I also offer a free discovery call. And I do that because I recognize that in these kinds of conversations, people might really be triggered to the point of tears and to the point of like, what do I do about this? And so I offer a free discovery call for anyone who wants to unpack what we've talked about today in a tailored way and talk about how coaching can be supportive.
Yeah, amazing. We're going to put all of that down inside the show notes so you can find it the day this launches or 2 years later, and you will be able to get to the quiz and the resources and the discovery call as you need it. And, audience, this is, again, this is a human experience. So, this is something that I think everyone is dealing with, at least at some level. And, they always say another level, another devil kind of thing. So even if you don't have it now, maybe growth or something could trigger this in the future.
Dawn, I'm not sure if you're closing on that statement, but I absolutely cannot agree with you more that growth triggers the next level of unveiling of self, right? And that piece that you said about suddenly waking up and I'm an entrepreneur or I'm in the C-suite and suddenly I'm triggered. Like, am I a bad person? Did something happen to me? Absolutely not. Life gives us these experiences where we are really questioned to ourselves. Am I going to step into this or am I going to hold myself back? And that doesn't mean am I going to hold the title or not. It means, am I going to embrace myself as good enough for this thing or am I going to tell myself that I'm not? And every aspect of life can bring that out of us. And we always are at the plate to answer the question, yeah, I'm enough. It's brilliant. Thank you. Thanks,
yeah, thank you. And thank you for that reassurance because, again, dealing with these things, particularly, I think, just makes it more fulfilling as you do confidently step into those next roles. And, again, we're not necessarily raised with this information, especially a lot of us who started businesses and even, you went to college or whatever, you get into the C-suite. And unless you've actually dealt with this particular thing around mindset, I think that, there's just no training necessarily unless you have parents who have done the work and been through it to, prepare you for these other levels. So I appreciate you reassuring everybody that this is just part of the human experience. And it's definitely something that you can have awareness and address and have, more fulfillment in the future. All right. We'll talk to y'all next time on the next episode of the Profit Accelerator Podcast. Take care.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Profit Accelerator Podcast. If you want some more information about me or free resources, please visit my updated website, DawnKKennedy.com. Follow me on social at Dawn K. Kennedy XO on Instagram and on Facebook at Dawn K. Kennedy Mentor. I'll see you next time.